Hello everyone. In today's video, we'll learn about config compliance module of Atom. I'm Sahil Katira and I work as a technical marketing engineer with Anuta Networks. Okay, let us first go to the resource manager. Under resource manager, we have the config compliance section. So here, once you load the config compliance page, the first screen you see is the dashboard. Under dashboard, you have various widgets. So here you can see you have the config compliance devices widget, which shows the overall devices on which we have run the compliance checks. Then you have the config compliance status where you can see the status of the devices which are compliant, non-compliant. And then there's the execution status, which shows the profile execution. You have the device group and the execution status by device group. So you can check which devices the compliance was executed. And this is customizable. So you can always keep on adding more widgets as and when these are required. So next, let's take a look at the policies section. So here you will find all the policies that are part of the compliance module of Atom. Some of these policies are given from day one and are preloaded, but you can define your own policies as well. So here I'm going to show you the MTU policy and the various rules and conditions that we have written inside the policy and how a policy actually works. So let me go inside this policy. Let's take a look at the MTU Juniper rule. And if I click on edit, I'll see that you have various sections here. And under the platform, I can see that it's defined as Juniper Networks. And you have other options where you can choose your own vendor and platform, depending on the SNMP OIDs that you have imported onto Atom. And you can choose device type, OS version, device family as well. Next are the rule variables. So here you can define your Jinja variable. We have defined a MTU underscore payload variable and we have given a default value is 9192. So these are sort of standards that you can set here, and these standards can then be manipulated across your profiles to deploy the policies, the same policy under various profiles. Next are the conditions and actions. Here you have defined two conditions. First is the verify interfaces family. Let's take a look at this condition. So here what I've defined is that I'll go through all the interfaces of the configuration of this particular device, and then I'll narrow down the interfaces which are of type XDG, AE, or ET, and which have an active IP address. Next, let's take a look at the actions of this condition. So under actions, if it's a match, I continue down to second condition. In the non-match, I have set as do not raise a violation. Next, let's go to the second condition, which is my major condition, where I verify the actual MTU on the interfaces. So here, I go through the list of interfaces that have been passed from my first condition. And from that list of interfaces that I've got, I'll iterate through that list and find the MTU. So if the MTU equals to MTU underscore payload, which we defined under rule variable in the previous section, if it matches, I go ahead. And if it's a non-match, then I define the action. So under the action details, we see that if the MTU match, we continue. If it's a non-match, we select the action to raise violation. And the violation severity we have defined as critical. And then under the violation, we have the fix CLI where you can define a set of commands which will be pushed to make the device compliant. Let's now take a look at the profile section. So under the profile section is where you will actually use the policies, and the profiles will be used to actually group these policies. And once you've grouped various policies, like for Cisco devices, you would just want to run the MTU policy and say the NTP policy, and for Juniper devices, you need to run the firewall access rule policy. So all these policies can be grouped into these profiles, and then you can define the variable. So for one profile, the MTU can be 9192, but for another profile, which is for a separate vendor, the MTU can be 8182. And then the second use of profiles is that you can select your device and the device groups on which the profiles will be run. So here you can utilize the device list that we have onboarded onto Atom. I'll run this profile on the current config. So I have the second option to run it on the latest from the config archive. Then there is a schedule option where you can schedule the frequency this profile will be run every 5 minutes or 1 hour. So I'll run this profile as a one-time task. So from here, I'll click on this task here and then insert this task. So in this task viewer, I can see that now my audit report has been created for this device that I selected. So once we open the audit report, we can see what's the status of each of the condition that we tested the device against. Now next, let's see the status of the device against each condition in the reporting section, which will give us a better view what's happening with the device. So let me go to the report, and here I can filter out the report depending on the device ID or the policy. So let me quickly go to the IP address of the device on which we ran the compliance profile and then filter out the MTU policy. So when I apply this filter, I can see that towards the end, one condition is compliant. So I can see a green icon against the condition status. So even if one of the condition is non-compliant, the overall device status will be non-compliant. Now the next step is to run the remediation command. So here we click on the fix CLI and I have to give a job name for the remediation. And when I define a job name, I can see all this set of remediation commands that will push the device to make the device compliant. So I've selected my MTU policy here. So I'll click on start now and then. So again, if we go to the task viewer, we'll see that this task has been pushed. So now let me open the device command line and here I can see the MTU has been changed to 9192 and I can also verify it through running the condition again. So I'll go to the profile, go to the MTU profile and run it once more. And now the report should show the device to be compliant. So I'll filter out the report for the MTU policy. And here we can see that both the conditions are compliant. So that is all for configuration compliance.